the Cavaliers that set LeBron off in Cleveland.
This lady.
Fans around all sports have had a tendency to say ridiculous things in order to get the attention of a player. But these instances are far from normal. They're actually hurtful and racist comments that should never be said. Some of the fans have even gotten themselves banned for life over something that they said towards a player on the court, while others have gotten instantly kicked out of the stadium. A few fans in particular took things a little too far when they tried to attack Danny Green. It should be known that Green is a very accomplished NBA player who is a fantastic three-point shooter, despite the fact that he gets made fun of quite often on Twitter, if any of you haven't already known. But this time, it was more than just making fun of him and trying to get a laugh out of other people. He and his fiancée were actually getting death threats from fans, and for something completely stupid. See, the Los Angeles Lakers and the Miami Heat were locked in a tight battle during Game 5 of the NBA Finals this past season in the bubble. He was on the Lakers, and the team held a sturdy 3-1 lead in the series at this time, so Game 5 was nothing more than an elimination game for a very tough Miami squad. Pretty soon, though, the Lakers found themselves down by 1 point with just a few seconds remaining on the clock. They had to draw up a play and get a free shot to try and send it into overtime, and Green was the man with the open look. Green actually had a very open shot for the win, but he ended up missing it, which happens to everybody. You don't knock down every single shot that you take, regardless of it being a clutch situation. Los Angeles went home with a loss after that contest, but eventually won the next game and the championship along with it. But Green was saying that both he and his fiancée were getting constant death threats from fans over his missed shot. While he says that he doesn't even open his messages that much, he was completely unhappy at how many his fiancée was getting because she has less followers. So those hateful messages appear at the top of her DM list. This whole situation sadly wasn't even the first time that Green has gotten these types of threats, and that's truly sad to think about. Golden State Warriors fans sent him constant hate mail and threats when they were going head-to-head against the Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. Klay Thompson and Green were tangled up a little bit and were each just trying to make a play for their team, while Klay landed awkwardly and ended up tearing his ACL. Multiple Warriors and Raptors players had gone over to Green to ensure him that it wasn't a dirty play and something that was accidental, which it definitely was. Even Thompson himself said that the play wasn't even a little bit dirty, and that they were both just playing really hard to try and win the game for their team. But none of that stopped the terrible messages that he and his fiancée were receiving. Stuff like this should never be joked about, even a little bit. I know we're long past those two situations now, but my heart goes out to both him and his fiancée for having to go through all of that, and I can only hope that they don't have to deal with that type of hurt ever again. Jay Crowder is also among the growing list of NBA players who have received death threats throughout their career, even going on to say that he's received more and more of them lately, and he doesn't even know the reason why. Unlike Danny Green, Crowder has just been playing basketball. And even though he was a member of that Heat squad, he didn't miss a game winner or anything like that. He actually played really well throughout the postseason. Crowder said during an interview that he seems to always get death threats even if he doesn't do anything. But lately, he was getting so many of them that he had to start to address the situation. This is what he had to say on the matter on his Instagram account. "It's wild to me the amount of death threats I get on the regular. How can people send me messages, mail wanting to kill me, but never met me? I gotta up my security since I don't even know where there's hate coming from. And before I let my guard down and let one of you take me away from my daughter." Players shouldn't even have to say or think about things like this in their careers because they're just like the rest of us and have real lives to take care of. The only real positive out of the situation is that he never received any threats regarding his 6-year-old daughter, because then it would be truly way over the line, even though it already is. Crowder is just trying to tune out the noise and play the game of basketball like he always has, but these fans are trying to get inside his head as if he owes them something. Like Fred VanVleet said, a point guard for the Toronto Raptors, that NBA players are not just a show or part of some zoo. They're real human beings who deserve the utmost respect and admiration for their game on the floor. He said, "You don't just go into the exhibits at the zoo and start taunting all of the animals that you can." He makes a great point. These guys are just like the rest of us and should be treated that way. Nobody deserves any type of death threats ever. It doesn't matter what you do. But outside of death threats, there are a ton of other issues that fans have caused with their actions, such as yelling racist slurs from the stands at certain players on other teams. Sadly, there are far too many of these incidents to keep track of in the league, but here are a couple of stories that NBA players have opened up and told league officials about. The first example would be with Russell Westbrook. The former Oklahoma City Thunder point guard had a number of bad experiences with fans, with one in particular coming in Utah against the Jazz. Cameras and teammates caught Westbrook jawing with a fan named Shane Kiesel. The two were going back and forth, with Russell threatening to beat him up, although Kiesel said that he didn't even think anything was serious between the two. In fact, he actually believed that they were just having fun and that he never even said a swear word at Westbrook before he exploded. But the team decided to begin an investigation over the matter and took interviews with people sitting close to him along with video evidence, and they chose to ban Kiesel for life. They determined that he was yelling excessive and derogatory verbal abuse towards Westbrook, and that some was even racist. Westbrook also said that a fan told him to get down on your knees like you're used to, and also called him boy from the stands, before Westbrook immediately called for security and got them escorted out of the arena. Unfortunately, DeMarcus Cousins, Malcolm Brogdon, Kyle Korver, and Marcus Smart were all able to share their own stories of getting into confrontations with fans after hearing racist remarks. The league has since been doing everything in their power to try and limit these things from happening, but the sad reality is that there are more than likely fans out there who just love saying those things to players and trying to get a reaction out of them. It needs to stop, and all of the players are aware of that. The fans have to be careful though, as some players in the league just might jump into the stands and reprimand them themselves after hearing something terrible like that, and I wouldn't even blame them. Patrick Mills underwent a similar experience during his days with the San Antonio Spurs. He mentioned that both him and his family have suffered from racial experiences throughout his life and is no stranger to those hurtful words anymore. He went into detail after a game about all of the horrible words that he's been called throughout his time playing sports, both in soccer and in basketball, from all over the world. The Spurs were locked into a tight match against the Cleveland Cavaliers on February 25th in the fourth quarter, when Mills was fouled and the entire court started to head over to the free throw line. Mills was taking a few deep breaths before aiming his shot when a fan yelled something outrageous. He said, "Hey Mills, Jamaica just called. They want their bobsledder back." Instead of sprinting off of the court and trying to tackle the terrible person that just yelled that out with no remorse, Mills opted to be more professional about the matter and calmly knocked down his 2 free throws while getting back to play defense in order to help his team win the game. Though Mills didn't just let the situation go after the game. He was upset over the matter and wanted the league to begin to pay attention to this type of abuse that NBA players suffer from every now and then. A few days after Mills brought widespread attention to the subject, the Cavaliers did everything in their power to identify the man by interviewing nearby fans and looking over cameras, similar to how the Jazz dealt with Kiesel. Sooner or later, they ended up picking out the fan on camera, and they chose to ban him from any and all events that were to happen at Quicken Loans Arena for an entire year. His name was never revealed, but Mills still thanked the organization for their fast work and punishment to the man. Mills also wanted everybody around to look deeper into racism that was happening by the fans around the league, and that the league itself will need to step in and get this whole thing sorted out. His head coach, Greg Popovich, spoke about the matter a little bit later himself, and he was proud at how well Mills handled the situation, and he backed Mills' statement, saying that these things need to be stopped around the world, and the league should begin to look into these atrocious comments. That's all we have for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Check out Terrifying Times That NBA Players Actually Fight Fans up next.